The Magicians Podcast is sponsored by Wyrick Nation. Sign up today for exclusive meet and greet opportunities, Wyrick Nation e-blasts, and 25% members-only discount on merchandise from the Steve Wyrick line of magic. Visit stevewyrick.com/Wyrick-Nation.
The Magicians Podcast is brought to you in proud association with the Magic Circle, Alakazam Magic, and Gigio.
And that's how I feel, I think, about mystery entertainers. You think if you're on stage, it's fine. The moment you move off stage, you're just doing essentially what I refer to as lying.
Yeah. Yo, it's my life, my time, my rights, my rhymes, my grind, my struggle, hustle, sweat in my blood too. I'm ready to smell fear, I smell a lot. My competitors fled scared, cause they smelled I was hot. I want it all, excess, the sex, much success, stress us. I want it all, no less, so come on.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Magicians Podcast. I am your host, Richard Young. Welcome to the show. We have a fantastic episode lined up this week with Professor Richard Wiseman. We will get to the interview very shortly, but before I do, I just wanted to take a moment to thank so many of you who got in touch after last week's episode with David Berglass. I'm so happy that you guys enjoyed the interview. He was very open, very candid in it, some interesting bits in it. Do me a favour, if you did enjoy it, there's definitely another magician you can think of who would also enjoy it. Drop them a line, send them a tweet, send them a Facebook message, send them an email with a link to the episode and tell them to have a listen. The man is a legend and he deserves a wide audience now he's reached the big 9-0. So what's going on in magic? I hope you're enjoying the summer so far. I caught Impossible in the West End a few days ago. What a fantastic show. Make sure you go and see it. It's got a fantastic cast, a great evening of entertainment. If you're into magic and you're in the capital this summer, you cannot miss it. Sincere thanks to all of you who also came to see Champions of Magic. Our run, which ended a couple of weeks ago, was great fun, and I'm so pleased so many of you came out to see it. If you don't follow us on Twitter, please do it now. We are at Magician Podcast, or you can give our Facebook page a like. Just search for The Magicians Podcast on Facebook. You'll come across it easily. There's a nice community building up on there. If you do have a spare minute, please do leave this podcast a little review on iTunes. It helps our search engine ranking in the iTunes store. I personally would really appreciate it. Here's a little secret. The Magicians Podcast also has an Instagram page. I'm not really using it yet, but it is there. If you can find it, give it a follow. I will be most impressed that you have found it. So my guest this week is Professor Richard Wiseman. I know you know who he is, but let's just take a look at a few of the things he is known for. He is the Professor of the Public Understanding of Psychology at the University of Hertfordshire. He is an author. He is the man behind the Quirkology YouTube channel, which has over 2 million subscribers. And of course, most importantly, he is a magician. That's why he's in my hot seat this week. So sit back, relax, and enjoy an hour in the company of myself, Professor Richard Wiseman, and an unexpected co-host. Delighted to say I am sat here with Professor Wiseman. Hello, Richard.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Now, before we get going, I do need to take care of a little piece of business.
Oh dear.
Which is strange. What are you doing here?
I'm a big fan. I'm a Richard Wiseman fan.
Okay. Great.
Also, have you heard the podcast, Richard?
I haven't heard any of them. I didn't even know. You've done a couple, have you?
I've done 60 odd.
Yeah, whatever. I've been busy. I'm an extremely busy man. I've heard none of them. I didn't know you were doing them. I don't know who either of you are. But welcome and good luck with whatever it is that you're doing.
Good stuff.
I'm here to oversee the fact that he doesn't ask you some silly questions.
Right.
You're a professor on the highest level.
Yes, I used to be a professor on one of the lowest levels, but I got promoted to a professor on the highest level.
But the content of most of his interviews consists of questions like, what do you think of Steve Wyrick's helicopter appearance?
Yes,
yeah, that's
shit.
Which is insulting. which is insulting to a man of his credentials.
Yeah. Does it fool anyone? I mean, does anyone think, my goodness, where did that helicopter come from? Surely they just think, how on earth, given your act, did you afford a helicopter that looks like that?
Well, do you know what? Actually, I will say that's a fair comment. Guy Hollingworth said on his episode that it doesn't look airworthy.
Right.
which I felt was a very intelligent thing to point out.
That's right. Yes. No, I
personally-
was kidding about your podcast. I've listened to many of your podcasts.
Have you?
Of course, I've enjoyed lots. You've interviewed many people I know, and you've got information from them I didn't know about them, even though I've known them
good.
for many, many years.
Mind
So
you, Richard Wiseman is an expert on telling lies. He's
This
written
is
many
true.
books.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
What's your favourite episode? Favourite episode?
moving on. I think where you interviewed Sooty.
Richard Cadell.
No, Sooty. It was just questions followed by silence, and then you explaining he was shaking his head. Richard Pearson, or as you referred to him, Richard Cadell.
Yes, that was his original name.
He was, and because the two of us were in Young Magician of the Year together in the final.
Yes.
He unfortunately won with an act which, even to this day, I'm slightly bitter and twisted about. I don't think he should have won. I should have won. It could have been me with the Sooty franchise, but no, it's Richard, and good luck to him. There is no long-term feelings of hurt and bitterness between the two of us.
Critically, do you remember who the judges were?
That's a very good question. I'm thinking Bobby Bernard somewhere, and that's the only name. Am I wrong on that?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'll have to do some research. But Bobby Bernard, he always backed Oberon over the years. I've heard that story a few times.
Backed Oberon.
Yeah, he backed him. Like professionally, Mark
I don't
Oberon.
know who's Oberon. I don't know.
You don't know Mark Oberon?
Mark
He won FISM.
UV Act.
Oh, whatever.
You don't...
Bang on.
Right.
Bang on. I'm the only working magician in the world who uses his trick bang on. It's brilliant. The person
That's it.
names a card,
Yeah.
and the card which they name is in my wallet, in an envelope. Unless
Right.
it's a king, it's not in an envelope then. And it's a great trick. It does
Right.
take up 2 inside jacket pockets.
Okay, you've got like 52 wallets.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
very elaborate filing system,
Yeah.
put together by Mark Oberon. I think it's brilliant.
He sounds like a sort of Doctor Who character. It'd be like the Oberon. The Oberons are a Doctor Who character. The Oberons are a warlike sort of species, I'm sure, from some of the early Doctor Who episodes.
This is the highbrow intellectual conversation I came for.
I'm sure that's the Oberons, yes.
Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
yeah, I'm sure the Oberons are a Doctor Who character.
He does a Midas act. You'd enjoy that. He does
Yeah, it's good that.
everything changes to gold. He's got a UV act, which I think he must have created on some sort of weird pill trip or something, because it's
Right.
just crazy. What else did he put out?
Well, he's performed at the. If you look at that Midas Act, it's on YouTube, and it's a performance of him performing at the Magic Castle in Hollywood. And I know from a bit of research that you've performed at the Magic Castle in Hollywood.
Thank you for that segue, because otherwise I thought this entire
Oh,
interview
just
would be
right.
about Mark Oberon, a man of which I know nothing. I've never met. I have performed 3 times at the Magic Castle. I met Di Vernon. I shook hands with Vernon. He came in to see my act.
Did he?
Yes, he genuinely said he'd never seen anything like
So
it.
you're a lot older than you look then.
I'm 112.
That's how it is.
I'm 49 years old, and I was at the castle when I was, I think, 18 or 19, and it was the Vernon's last year there.
See, I've done my research too. Actually, it's on your wiki
Don't believe
page.
that.
But apparently, your first experience at the castle was not a good one. Is that fair to say?
None of them were good ones for the audience. They're still booing. I mean, if you go over there now, you go into the close-up room, they're still booing me. No, it was bad. I went over to America with a friend of mine called Adrian Owen, and Adrian is now one of the most famous brain specialists in the world, but at the time he wasn't. And we went over there, and we were travelling together, went to Times Square, all that stuff. And I was pointing out that Times Square was a lot rougher then. A 3-card trick people, 3-card Monty. I was pointing out to Adrian all the people in the gang. I think we counted 12 of them, then realised there were 13 of them because the 13th person had stolen our bag from between our legs.
Wow.
I had everything. I had passports, had tickets, all our money, all my props, everything. So then I went over to the Magic Castle from there. On the way over, the handle fell off the other suitcase I'd got. And this was before things were on wheels, and so you have to literally carry this big kind of suitcase without a handle. It was very difficult. Got to the castle, prized off one shoe with the other, and ripped the sole off of my shoe.
Oh.
So my first night at the castle was performing with a shoe that was held together with elastic bands, with somebody else's sponge balls and a deck of cards. And I'd love to say the whole thing was a triumph, but it wasn't. It was disastrous.
And they still won't book us there.
No, I know.
Really?
That's unbelievable.
It's interesting that the level is me with an elastic band around my shoe.
We still can't
And you still can't get in. I'm saying nothing.
That's amazing. So, no, I have done a little bit of research. I think actually your early beginnings are quite interesting. You were a street performer in Covent Garden as well.
With Adrian Owen, my brain specialist friend. That was the time when Duncan Trillo was around, Roy Lee was around. And so we went down there, we did a double act. It wasn't very good, but we paid our way through college with it. And we had a very rough time in that we had no money at all. My girlfriend at the time was a nutritionist. She was studying nutrition at UCL. And I said to her, how can we live with almost no money in terms of what we should eat? And she worked out that if we had porridge with grapefruit segments in, you could survive on that and keep going. That's all we ate for the entire summer, was porridge with grapefruit segments.
Wow.
And the grapefruit segments stop you getting scurvy. And that's what we had. We had no money at all. And went down there every day and did our pretty rubbish act.
What was the content in the act? Were you doing the cups and balls, or
No, it was a comedy juggling. It wasn't magic.
Oh, it wasn't magic.
No.
Okay.
No, it was comedy juggling. So I used to get Adrian out the audience if he's a member of the audience and sort of abuse him for a few minutes, and then we did juggling between us. And Duncan was extremely good, and Roy was great, and all the breakdancers were great, and I think they felt very sorry for us.
Yeah.
In part because we got a lot of porridge stains down the front of our shirt.
That's brilliant.
So here's a question. At the same time, I think you did restaurant magic and also performing in theatres. So you, in a way, you've covered all the bases there: stage entertainment, street magic, close-up, cabaret. Out of all those styles of performance, which was your favourite?
I wasn't very good at close-up. So Magic Moments opened, which was a magic restaurant in Regent Street. And that was Rich McDougall and Ian Keeble, JJ, myself, a few others doing that. And I wasn't very good at that. Stage I enjoyed more, but as Richard Pearson or Richard Goodell will tell you, I wasn't very good at that. Street stuff, we earned no money at all. I ended up eating porridge for over 2 months. I've never tried mentalism. I've never tried illusions, except for once in Edinburgh when I was 19. I had a horrendous moment on stage with the French guillotine.
Oh, yeah.
So I bought the guillotine on. It was a friend's French guillotine, so this was the big 6-foot one. And got a member of the audience up, put them into the stocks, and to steady themselves, they put their hands over the top of the stocks, which of course is where the blade genuinely drops down.
Goodness.
And I didn't see it. So I'm just about to pull the rope, and the stage manager, thank goodness, was awake enough to realise what was happening and screamed out, and I stopped.
Oh.
Otherwise, it would have gone straight down onto their fingers and possibly through them.
Oh, my goodness.
So after that, I never touched illusions again.
Do you know what did occur to me there, though? The reality is, if that had gone well, you could now be doing the helicopter illusion.
That's what I've always thought. Yes.
What's the most astounding what you've said there is that you've never performed mentalism.
No.
But you're a psychologist, right?
Yeah, no, I know.
What I've read.
I mean, I watch Mentalists, and they go to somebody, write down on that pad, and then they take the pad back. And I always think, shouting in the audience, let them keep the pad. Go on, it's just a cheap pad. Let them keep it, it's just a pad of paper. It's only worth £1. Keep the pad. Let them keep the pad. Why do you always take your pad back, mate?
You know your Quirkology videos?
I know them very well, yes.
Who's the guy who's the victim of all the practical jokes and the water on the lantern?
It's a homeless child. We went out into the street one day and he was begging, and I said, will you please come inside the house, we'll film you and we'll just give you a little cup of warm broth. He said that would be lovely, and so we bring him in and we give him a little cup of broth. He doesn't know what's happening. It's sad.
It's harmless, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
You're
Now,
like
talking of which, actually, I had an idea for the Fringe, the Free Fringe. When I played there a couple of years ago, I was in the Voodoo Rooms, and I thought saying to the audience, right at the end of the show, where obviously on the way out they put money into the bucket, saying to them, look, here's the thing. On the way in today, I noticed there was a homeless kid on outside the Voodoo Rooms. Please don't give me any money at all. Let's make this a big thing for him. On the way out, double whatever you'd give me and put it in his bucket. And because he's just working for me. We split it 50-50. It's a win-win. That's where I'm going with that. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
brilliant. Actually, let's talk about the Fringe, because it starts this weekend and you live in Edinburgh.
Just before we do, to answer your question seriously, Caroline, my partner, it's her son, he's an extremely good musician and composer. So he composed all the music for Quirkology and all the other shows I've done as well. I pay him £2.50 and he allows himself to sit in those videos.
No, you mentioned the Fringe.
Yes.
And the Fringe starts this weekend. Everyone's very excited. We're going up, aren't we, Strange
Yeah,
Season?
we
We're
are,
not, not doing a show there this year, but we're going to go and watch some shows. You're actually heavily involved with the Fringe.
Yeah, I'm on the board, so I'm one of the directors of the Fringe. Yes, yes.
How are things this year? I know there's a lot of people listening to this, so going up to the Fringe. You're excited about this year?
It's exciting and terrifying in equal amounts. I mean, it brings in a vast amount of money to the city. I mean, it's millions of pounds. It's a little bit scary. Every year it gets bigger. Every year we sell more tickets. Every year the Free Fringe puts on more shows. And every year it feels even more vibrant. And because it's only one of the festivals that happens in August, the book festival, film festival, TV festival, jazz festival, all around the same time. So, no, it's always exciting. And it's great for me because I get to sit in my house in Edinburgh and all my magic mates all come through the city and I get to go for coffee and some of them stay over with me and stuff. So it's always a very special month.
I'm always fascinated to ask people who go to the Fringe every year this question. What are some of the things you've seen over the year, some of the highlights of their particular shows you've seen where you go, that was really special? A few of our friends saw Xavier Mortimer do his Fringe show a few years ago and still rave about it to this day. Similar with some of the stuff that Barry and Stuart did, 6 or 7 years ago. What are some of your highlights that you've seen over the years?
I've seen Barry and Stuart many times there. They're always great. Xavier was fantastic. I had a very weird experience not with Xavier, but with him as a catalyst, with Gaten Bloom.
Okay.
So I'm in Portugal with Gaten, and I said, you must know Xavier Mortimer. And he went, no, I've never heard of him. And I said, but you're both in Paris. You must know each other. He went, no, I've never heard of him. I said, Xavier Mortimer. He said, I've never heard of him. And I said, oh. And they said, hold on a second, do you mean Xavier Mortimer? I said, yes. He goes, oh, he's my closest friend. I thought there cannot be that much difference between saying Mortimer and Mortimer. But one he didn't recognise, and it turned out he was the best man at his wedding or something. So it was very odd. So I know he was pulling my leg. He was a very nice man. So to answer your question, all the magic stuff I've seen there has always been very strong. I have to say that the best moments I've seen have actually been probably outside of magic.
Okay.
Last year, for example, there was a guy it's a lovely idea. He'd gone around with a camera taking people's portraits as a photographer. But what the camera actually did was record them for the 15 seconds after they thought the portrait moment had finished. So you saw the portrait, but then the 15 seconds afterwards you saw the real them because they suddenly relaxed and did something. And his whole show was about how you got behind someone's sort of public-facing persona by looking at the 15 seconds after the portrait. And it was a beautiful, beautiful show. So it pains me to say it, but probably the best moments of the Fringe for me have been outside of magic, even though I've probably seen most of the magic sort of stuff that happens there.
Yeah, you enjoy performing up there? You've done some shows over the years there, or do you prefer just to be a spectator?
It's such a busy month for us because so many people are coming through. I probably prefer not to be doing stuff. But I did Experimental up there, which was the show with no performer. I did the show about Ghost Hunter Harry Price. I've done lots of talks up there. So, yeah, I kind of enjoy it.
You mentioned Portugal, that's EMC.
EMC?
Just jogged my memory there.
Yes, I did all 3 EMCs. Yeah.
Did you enjoy the process? I mean, I subscribe to it every year. I miss it, actually. It's not around anymore. Was that an enjoyable process to do that?
It was just brilliant. The idea is 33 magicians go over to Portugal and they have a sort of convention where we all sit around and perform for one another. Perform for 32 magicians looking at their laptops, checking Facebook primarily. And Luis Matos did it with Marco and David Britland. And it's a kind of visionary idea and unbelievable that he pulled it off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of an incredible creative team, but also just the pragmatics of flying in 33 world-famous, incredibly busy magicians, persuading them to do this thing. No, I'm in awe of the team for doing it. I had a great time.
And everyone that was watching on the internet, I think what we were all thinking was, actually, we just want to see the hotel lobby. You got to hang out with all of these people. Were there any interesting highlights of that you can recall?
There are several stories, none of which I'm prepared to share with you. It was great, and Lewis is amazing.
Brilliant.
So I want a definitive yes or no answer.
Yes.
Richard.
That was it. Oh no, sorry. Yeah.
To just clear up something, right? Just clear it up in a simple yes or no answer. You're renowned for your paranormal debunking, skepticism, critical thinking. Have you ever, in all the cases you've studied, seen anything that's had you perplexed or confused?
If the question is there anything which I think is paranormal, then the answer is no. But I've seen many things that you kind of think, oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, there's been some very odd coincidences in fact, actually, the best piece of magic I ever performed, it was down the road from here, actually, in Palmer's Green. I was with my girlfriend, and we're walking along in Palmer's Green, and see, the problem with magic is the frame is always, look, there's going to be a magic trick now, so people are looking for the method and so on. But we're just walking along the street, and there's a Greggs in Palmer's Green, and I love gingerbread men.
I do too.
Yes, I'm very... Now, here's the thing. In Scotland, the Greggs in Scotland, they don't have gingerbread men in. It's a really weird north-south divide. But the Greggs in England do have gingerbread men. Thank goodness. So we're walking along, and she went into a shop, and I went into Greggs, and I bought a gingerbread man. and they have two M&Ms, two Smarties for eyes.
Yep.
And obviously there's hundreds of combinations, and it was like a red eye and a blue eye. Put it into my jacket pocket. I came out. She didn't see me do that. She came out the shop and she went, "Oh, there's a Greggs there. I'll go and buy you a gingerbread man." So she goes in. She comes out. The one she comes out with, in terms of the colour of the eyes, is identical to the one that's in my pocket. Identical. And it's like hundreds to one, because there's lots of different combinations. So I realised that. I took her gingerbread man. I said, "What's amazing about this gingerbread man is you can put it into your outside pocket, and he runs around and comes out in your inside pocket." It was the best thing I've ever performed, because for her, that's a miracle. Yeah. There is no way that can happen, and it's not in the frame of magic. And Paul Harris talks about this, that if you need astonishment, you can't do it within the frame of a performance. For her, that would be an inexplicable moment, and if I was, somebody claiming to be psychic, that'd be quite strong evidence. And there's been a few sort of moments like that for me, but that's by far the best piece of magic I've ever performed, and there was only one member in the audience.
The Magicians Podcast brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Whether you're new to magic or a seasoned professional, Alakazam Magic are here to help. Alakazam have been supplying magic to magicians for well over 20 years. Not only do we carry all the latest and greatest magic tricks, books and DVDs, but we also manufacture one of the finest ranges of magic tricks in the world. The Alakazam name is synonymous with great customer service, educated advice and honesty. So if you're shopping for new magic, make sure you check out our website www.alakazam.co.uk or pay a visit to our fully stocked shop.
Gigi-O, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Gigi-O.
If you're a gigging close-up magician or children's entertainer, you need Gigi-O. It's a web-based software designed for you that will save you hours in the office every single week in administration work. It generates PDF contracts and invoices, it tracks your payments, it updates the diary on your phone automatically, and it will even allow you to schedule emails to your clients to keep your communication with them to a minimum. All the top professionals use it, and if you go to the website right now, which is gigio.co.uk, Gigio, by the way, is spelled Gigio, you can read what all those top professionals say about it and take a free 30-day trial to work out for yourself exactly how much time it will save you every single week. The website again, gigio.co.uk. Richard Wiseman has had over 360 million views on YouTube through his Quirkology YouTube channel. It all began several years ago with a video called The Colour Changing Card Trick. If you've never seen it, pause this podcast right now and go and watch it. As we pick up this interview again, I ask Richard how that video came about in the first place.
I had that piece in my head for about a month before we filmed it, and I wanted to create this thing where at the first time round you didn't spot the colour changes, then second time round you didn't see the deck switch, you didn't actually see the method. And so then one afternoon in the lab we all got together, I went, let's just try this, and we did it, and I put it out. And because you have to remember that was times when YouTube wasn't that big, and there weren't that many people on the platform. Put it out, went to bed, and woke up and 250,000 people had seen that clip. It had just gone around the world.
Quick.
It was within 24 hours. And it was to promote my book, Quirkology. That's obviously why the channel was called Quirkology. And my publisher, that was on a Thursday morning. My publisher phoned up and said, we need more YouTube clips. And I said, fine, when do you need them by? And they said, tomorrow. And I said, it took me a month to think of that and quite a long time to film it. It's not going to happen by tomorrow. So I was in the flat we're in now, actually, and I'd got a Martin Gardner book here, Mathematical Magic, and some post-it notes, and the glass which is on the top of that table over there, and just used it to create a sort of forcing matrix, so it looks like you moved around it, and it was the Martin Gardner force, and that became then the next viral. And then we did a Force Focus one, filmed in this flat again a little bit later on the day, and that became the third one. We had 3 virals in a row. Amazing.
This is an enormous revenue stream, isn't it? When you get to the level you're at now, where you're literally all of your videos, I think most of them have had millions of views, and now you've got multiples of that as well, and all the subscribers. Is it pretty much a full-time living?
So there are different revenue streams. The obvious one is from AdSense, and YouTube split that 50-50 with you. That is a complicated formula of how they do that, because it depends who's watching. So they know the demographic. So if a load of 8-year-old kids are watching, A, they're not going to click on the ads, and B, if they do, they're not going to buy anything. So those kids don't bring you in as much money as a 30-year-old who's got disposable income. So that ad space is being auctioned off moment by moment.
Oh, wow.
So that's one stream. The second is what's called sponsored, which is where somebody comes to you and says, will you advertise whatever during the video. And the third is then selling the rights to the videos. So there's enough sloshing around there. But that's incredible. I mean, like, when I was a kid, and even actually up to my sort of 20s or 30s, you had to be on telly if you wanted to be famous. And even then it didn't pay. I mean, I know loads of people who had 6-part series and didn't make any money out of it. And now you can sit at home in your flat, you can make something, and there are multi-millionaires from doing it. That is amazing. Yeah. That is phenomenal. And magic plays really well on YouTube. So, we live in very exciting times.
So do you set yourself a deadline with the content you produce, or do you just put it out as and when you think of the
ideas? We are so rubbish compared to anyone who should be doing this properly. I have ideas, I put them out. I stuff is what's called Evergreen Content, so unlike vloggers, where you find out what happened to somebody on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you don't really care about last year, as stuff you can go back and there's a back catalogue, and that's kind of helpful. But no, I just think of things and log them out. I'm quite busy, so, as and when, really.
So I spent a bit of time on the internet looking at you and what you've done. One of the things that did confuse me a little bit is why you've never done a TED talk. There's lots of TED talks, and I just thought with the subject matter that you do and how entertaining you are, and we saw you at the Session Convention do your after dinner.
Oh yes.
Sort of speech. It was brilliant. It was the highlight of the session, and you stormed it. So I just think that'd be perfect for a TED Talk, wouldn't it? Or
well, perfect if you want the whole world to have your material when you've only got about 50 minutes of it. And other speakers are a little bit like magicians. They are prone to taking gags. So that talk that you saw at the session, the opening 6 minutes of it, I think, is 14 years old. I have been doing that opening 6 minutes for 14 years. So if you stick it on TED, it doesn't work live because now they know all the gags and the beats and so on. So yeah, I never allow my talks to be recorded in either audio or video.
Interesting. One of the books you wrote was called 59 Seconds.
Yes.
And
just as a segue, you've obviously written a number of books. Have you got one that's a bestseller, or one that's astronomically more successful than the others, or are they all roughly the same?
So here's the thing. The first one, which was The Luck Factor, really got me into publishing. Then we did Quirkology, which was based on a chance conversation. Freakonomics had come out, which was about the weird aspects of economics. And I bumped into a friend of mine at a conference. He said, you should do a weird one on psychology. And I said, my stuff's not weird, it's quirky. I said, it's quirky psychology, it's Quirkology. And he went, that's a great title. Yeah. And that came out of that chance conversation. Then when I did 59, out of a chance conversation with a friend of mine who's a very sort of busy CEO of a massive organisation, we met up and he said, this is happiness. He said, I've been reading about psychology of happiness. What's that about? I started to answer. He went, I'm really busy. I'm thinking like less than a minute. And I thought, wow, if you're thinking less than a minute, there's going to be other people who's going to be thinking less than a minute in terms of explaining something. And that's the premise for 59 Seconds, chance conversation. Then I did Rip It Up, which was a book about the way in which your behaviour changes how you think. Did okay in this country. And my agent was kind of like, maybe that wasn't the right book to have done next. In China, it becomes the biggest best-selling non-fiction book of the year. We sold over 2 million copies in China. And it just shows you can't have a plan. You can just try and produce stuff that you find interesting, and then life takes over. I just do not think any of us would have predicted this thing would become a huge thing in China. So I think it's like magic. You stick it out there. You do what you love. You do what you know. You stick it out there, and you hope you get lucky, and you spread bet, and some of it will come home for you.
Did I interrupt your conversation?
No, you just got much better questions anyway. One of the things, forgive me, it's 59 Seconds, I think. The book, that's about self-help books. You got a problem with those? Do you not like them?
I don't like the ones that are based on weird stuff that isn't true.
Some people are really obsessed by them, aren't they?
Yeah. And what's great about self-help books is that you go into someone's house, and if you look at their bookshelf, you'll never see one. There's always a whole load of them. And you think that's the first indication that the first one they bought may not be quite as successful as they'd hoped. And so they're kind of pack animals of publishing. There's always a whole load of them. And part of that is because they're not evidence-based. And so they're advising people to do, the wrong thing. And so 59 was about saying in less than a minute, here's the right thing to do that's a lot more effective.
Sure.
So the original title for that book was 60 Seconds, and I always hated it, and I never knew why. And then I was giving a schools talk before the book came out, and I said, I've got this book called 60 Seconds, Things You Can Do in Less Than a Minute. And one of the kids went, if it's less than a minute, it should be called 59 Seconds. I thought that's a much better title. Thank you, child. Have this small packet of sweets.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Do you want to come and work in the Quirkology video?
That's right, yes. You get a little cup
as a
of
homeless
broth.
man outside Edinburgh. You got the key. See, one of the things, you have written a lot of self-help books, so did you ever feel like a bit more pressure to be this positive, enthusiastic character now that you've put that content out there and almost preached to everybody else?
No, because it would be a terrible, terrible thing to live up to. There's an old gag in psychology that you specialise in the areas which you yourself have the biggest deficit in. So if you've ever spoken to any psychologist to study personality, you'll know that's definitely true. Most clinicians are the most sort of messed up people I've ever met in my life. And it's true, with 59, yes, I do some of those things, but God, I'm not claiming to be this amazing, productive, happy person, human like the rest of us. So
can I ask you this? There's a lot of magicians listening to this, but magicians generally, I find, professionals are lazy, overpaid, and they procrastinate. What's a man of your standing? Give us some tips, because how can magicians be less of those things?
It's interesting you'd say that. I haven't got magicians down as being lazy. I thought
you don't know the ones we know.
Right? Okay, really.
So what about the workers, the ones who go out, they work 2 hours a week, they get
Right.
500 quid, and the rest of the week they just sit around watching box sets.
Box sets or...
I could name 10 magicians. Can you name 10 magicians who do that?
Yeah.
That sounds quite good, though.
It does. You should give it some thought, mate.
Yeah.
So
I watched
putting out
Deadwood the
videos.
other day. That's really good. You seen Deadwood?
Deadwood? No, not
Yeah,
seen it.
and a box set American Western. Boy, it's good.
I'm not good with box sets. I'm still trying to finish Lost.
Oh, yes.
A long time
Still
ago.
friends.
What can... I don't... That sounds right if they're happy. That's right. If they're unhappy, they should do something about it. If they're perfectly content doing that, it's fine with me. That's all right.
Do you like magicians?
Yes. I've been involved in magic since I was 8, and I'm now 49. I cannot imagine my life without magic. All my closest friends, I think pretty every single friend is as a magician. I subscribe to Genie and to Magic Magazine. I'm never going to perform any of the stuff in there, but I still love reading about it. There was a moment a couple of months ago when one dropped through the letterbox and Caroline shouted upstairs and said, "Oh, your comics arrived." So in my head, these sophisticated magazines full of magic theory and tricks, and she's quite right. And I thought, that's what they are. They are my comics, and I hope they remain like that. I still get excited about new ideas in magic. Magic is such a weird, dysfunctional family. Hearing the stories about magicians, how odd they are, never ceases to make me laugh. And so it's joyous. I cannot imagine my life without magic. And it's informed a lot of the psychology I do, clearly underlies the Quirkology videos. It is a joyous thing.
I think you're another example of a magician who is great at what you do and are very happy in life because you never made it your full-time living.
So that's really interesting you say that. The first Magic Castle trip cemented that. I thought I wanted to be a full-time magician. I went over there and did, whatever it is, 3 shows a night for a week. Got to the end of it and thought, I don't want to do this. I do not want to be doing this for a living. And at the time, Daniels was on TV and there was only room for one magician at the top. So I thought, even if you're really, 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 really good, you ain't going to be that guy, or at least it's likely you're not going to be that person. And I thought, I don't want to do it. And I was chatting to Max Maven at the castle, and he said that you've got this psychology stuff going on. Maybe that's a better direction. And that was one of the chats that pushed me in that direction, and I don't regret it at all.
What you interested? Obviously, you're still interested in magic. You said you get the magazine. So, what sort of magic do you look at now? Do you play with? Do you learn? What sort of stuff really floats your boat?
I like interactive stuff because of the channel. Funnily enough, yesterday I was in a charity shop just not very far from here, and there was the Carl Fulves book of kids' magic, which I'd never seen. I'd never seen it. It's sitting just on the shelf over there. And I'm flicking through it, and he's got a fantastic take on that old bar bet where you ask them to put their hand down, they curl their third finger under, and it means they can't lift... second finger under, they can't lift their third finger. It's an old bar bet, basically. What he does is get 4 playing cards, someone chooses one, shuffles them so he knows where their card is, he gets them to assume that position with their hand, puts the cards under their fingers, and then says your chosen card will be magnetic, which means you can't lift your finger away from it.
Oh, that's great.
And that's brilliant. I've been in Magic all those years. I've never seen that presentation of that old bar bear. And so that's what gets me excited. The notion that Forbes has had that idea. I don't know where he got that from, but he can share it with me via a charity shop a few hundred yards from here.
So on your channels, you've got about a huge amount of content in the space of what is normally a minute. In terms of where that comes from, as you've given a good example there of where that material will come from, is there an ethical issue with asking who created it and whether you're able to use it as an income stream?
So if it is obviously associated with one person, we would get permission from that person. I hope there is nothing on any of those videos where a magician would look and go, I created that and you didn't ask permission. Most of the bet stuff goes back so far into the sort of mists of time, we don't know who created it.
Okay.
But it's a big thing on YouTube. People shouldn't be just taking one another's material.
So in another, it's a tough question. Is that the
Yeah. We like those. People like those.
Yeah.
So in 2008, the Burglar's Foundation Award at the International Magic Convention was given to Uri Geller.
Yes.
And it got sort of a partial standing ovation.
People crouched. They just sort of, they came up a little bit, and I'm not going to stand up fully.
Okay, it's split the room a little bit.
Right.
And I just thought, as a paranormal investigator and someone who debunks people like Uri Geller, what do you think?
It depends how you frame Geller, isn't it? If you see him as a magician, I totally get where that award was coming from. He has been phenomenally successful. If you don't see him as a magician, then of course that's where the problem comes. I'm not a fan of Geller, but I can see if you're going to include those sorts of people in magic, then yes, he is one of the most successful.
I feel today is the day I should make a confession. I've been sitting on this for
Psychologists.
20 years.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, in 1998, I won the Magic Circle's Young Magicians Club close-up competition. Okay?
Right.
I was
That's
14,
still on his website.
Still on my website. I whooped Andy Gladwin's ass. Very proud of that.
Right.
I was 14 years old. Now, here's the confession. Mark Leverage was a sponsor of the competition and a judge.
Yes.
I did entirely in my act Mark Leverage tricks to appease the judge. And it worked. I won.
Lazy.
Right. Yes.
How would you analyse that? What type of person would you say I am?
Manipulative. I would say that's entirely appropriate. And he probably thought there's someone with very good taste using all my material. That's fine. Yeah. So I think you did the right thing.
It worked. You won a competition once, didn't you, Strange?
Thames Valley Magicians Guild, 2009.
Right. Using entirely Mark Leverage material.
No, Martin Sanderson. You know Martin Sanderson?
No.
Brilliant.
All right.
Corporate close-up worker.
Okay.
Have you never seen that DVD?
No, I assume he's good friends with Mark Oberon, because I don't know him
There's a lot of good stuff that would go on the Quirkology channel if you looked at the DVD.
A few people you need to look up after this. Mark Oberon, Martin Sanderson, Steve Wyrick.
Yeah.
Those are the people you need to look up.
Right, thank you. That's very kind. Yes, I'll definitely do that.
I've got to ask this. What did you do in Young Magician of the Year, by the way? Because we sort of touched on
whatever
it.
I did it badly. I had a weird act. It was quite surreal. I had a long coat on and did lots of silent productions. So I was working silently to music and did lots of productions. It was very odd. I would use the word original, but most people just use the word odd.
Did Cadell do the motorbike?
No, he was doing a patter act, very kind of light, sort of Daniels-ish, and made bottle tops appear, doing Miser's Dream, but with bottle tops.
Oh, I know about that. Coca-Cola act.
Right.
Yeah. He's a hero, that guy, Cadell.
It's great.
I'm trying to
He
make
is
him
good,
my
isn't
friend,
he?
but
Yeah.
he doesn't return my texts or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I plan to do with Wiseman.
It's hard for him to
That's
text.
not
He's got sooty on one hand, you see, all the time. That's funny. Very hard.
that's really funny. Oh, dear. So last week on the podcast was David Berglas, and as I mentioned last week, part of my research for that interview was using your incredible website, which you've made recently, davidberglas.wordpress.com, I believe is the correct
I think
address.
that's correct, yes.
Can I ask, first of all, it's an amazing website, why you decided to make it?
Well, David doesn't live very far from where we are, and so I went around to see him one day, and we got talking about his very early life. The fact that he was brought up in Berlin when Hitler was rising to power. He then escaped, came to this country, and then some of his adventures in the war and so on, and just hadn't been recorded properly. And so I went around there, I would think probably 10 times to record it and get it all down and then build the website. And it's just nice that stuff is out there in a form that people can listen to, because that stuff should be out there. So it's really cataloguing that very exciting period in his life.
You're a big fan of Berglas, though, is that fair to say?
Berglas is amazing. I was looking through the Burglass book when I was working with him, and you realise just how cutting edge his ideas were. He was taking a relatively small concept in mentalism and suddenly filling the stage, filling the entire theatre with it, making it really big sort of theatrical events. And he understood about how the media works, so he's getting all this publicity with stunts. And so you have, obviously Darren is building on that legacy, so is Dynamo. So you forget that it's Burglass's thinking that underpins a lot of that. So yeah, I think he deserves that sort of legendary status that he has.
You've got some great projects coming up soon as well. Can we do Burglass again, but this time the younger one, a young Marvin, is popping out a Quirkology magic set.
He is. I'm very
Marvin's
excited.
Magic.
Marvin's Magic.
Tell us about this.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. The idea of having my own illusion and magic set is 8-year-old me kind of going, yes! Yeah, how exciting. There's nothing more exciting than having that. And Marvin has worked on it and made a lovely job of it. So it's coming up with Marvin's Magic. It's Quirkology themed. It has loads of optical illusions, loads of bets in it, a few magic tricks. Just finished filming the video for it, so very exciting.
And you've got an exhibition as well coming up.
Yes, so at the Museum of Childhood in Edinburgh, we have a Quirkology exhibition, which we hope will then tour, which actually has David Copperfield in it.
Oh, I'm a big fan.
The man himself?
The man himself. He's very kindly, he just stands in the corner. And, apparently, no. He had this wonderful idea, which is that if you place a magician in that kind of levitation pose like that, holding my hands out in that levitation pose, place that horizontally on the wall, when a member of the public stands vertically at the magician's waist and you take a picture, then you turn the whole thing through 90 degrees, it looks like the magician is levitating them. And it's David's idea. I got in contact with him, I said, can we use that in the exhibition? And he said yes, and he was even kind enough to send the actual picture of him through. And so that's what we have as a centrepiece in the exhibition. He was very kind about it. So lots of people throughout the festival will be levitated by David.
Amazing. You've got loads more questions.
I've got a few more, but they're a bit heavy.
That's fine.
That's okay. There's a YouTube clip. You do a routine to the presenter, which involves you supposedly reading his body language and deducing what card it is.
Yeah.
Is there not, again, a conflict of interest with someone who debunks people who makes false claims, who then claim they have abilities they don't?
So the framing of that was how psychics fake psychic ability.
Yes.
So that's what I'm demonstrating there. Now, if I'm claiming to have psychic ability, that would be something of a problem. I don't claim to have psychic ability, but I'm doing, I think it's a Cy Stebbings setup.
Yes.
And looking at the bottom card.
There are other performers out there who debunk false claims and then make claims themselves. There's lots of mentalism and stuff out there with people saying they can read so-called body language when they can't. But by the same token, they'll turn up to a psychic's house and tell them what they're doing is rubbish.
Yeah.
Is that again not a conflict of interest there?
I think it's
debunking false claims and then making claims yourself.
So it depends to me on the frame. So if you go to a theatrical performance, the frame is one of entertainment, and there is no reason to believe the person on stage. So I think when you go and see Darren and he does a body language routine, it's very much within a theatrical frame, and that feels comfortable for me. And that's how I feel, I think, about mystery entertainers. You think if you're on stage, it's fine. The moment you move off stage, you're just doing essentially what I refer to as lying. Because they'll go, I just pretend to be this character. And you think, God, imagine, if you had something wrong with you, went to the doctor, and the doctor told you to take some pills, and they were terrible pills, and you went back, and then you said, I'm not actually a doctor, I'm just a mystery entertainer pretending to be a doctor. You'd be a bit pissed off about it. And so, I kind of think you don't have the right to pretend to be something you're not and not expect an enormous amount of flack from people. The moment that mystery entertainer or whatever steps outside of the theatre and says, you know what, actually this stuff is really true, and also the moment they then go, and you should base an important decision on it, like, how you invest your money or whether or not you think, you can contact a deceased family member, now you've gone beyond that frame. And for me, that's a step too far. But I understand why they do it, because it's such a powerful thing to say. If you want to touch people emotionally, do some sort of spiritualist routine, because even the poorest piece of magic will have a huge impact. And if that's what you're after, if you want people crying, then that's the way to go forward. So for me, it's about that framing.
We're going to have to wrap this afternoon up very soon.
No, I insist. We must carry on. I haven't told you my Mark Oberon story. Yeah. Two of us are very close.
Listen, the reality is the reason Strange is here today is because he's a big fan of yours and he wants to be your friend. Is that possible?
Yeah, is that possible? I've got...
not so much.
Do you know what about... Can you accept my Facebook friend request?
I know nothing off Facebook. I don't even know
That's
how...
12 months out of date already.
Right. I'm on Facebook, but I don't look at it. So, no, you can't be a friend. You can be an associate. An associate.
That's
that's pretty good though, isn't it?
That's all right.
Well,
Associate
there's lots of
Richard
them. Don't
Wiseman.
get too excited. Certainly,
It's just when you're at a gig and somebody asks, I had this psychic experience. Can I say my friend Richard Wiseman? I spent a long time studying this.
No, you can say somebody that I once met, Richard Wiseman,
Yes.
who has allowed me to use the word associate. Although he does apply that to many, many people. In that sense, I'm not special in
Someone
any
I know.
way.
What about someone I know? That's a bit more.
The only person that you can use the word friend to in that sense is Mark Oberon. You can say to Mark that I'm your friend, but for no one else, please, I beg of you.
Let's do word association.
Yes.
Steve Wyrick.
Talented illusionist, sarcasm.
Strange.
Talented illusionist.
No, friend.
Oh, friend. Sorry, yes. In that Freudian sense of word association, where opposite, or sometimes it means the opposite of what you've just said. Absolutely, yes. Close friend.
David Britland.
Genius.
David Berglass.
Genius.
Marvin Berglass.
Genius.
Sounds strange. He was on a roll. I thought we could get him. That's it.
You can edit it across.
Yeah, that's true.
What was the best day of your career?
No, I don't know. There are just so many moments. I don't think I've got it's a really boring answer. I don't think I've got it wasn't when I met Andy Nyman. I remember that. That's all I'm prepared to say.
What about the worst day of your career?
Oh, meeting Andy Nyman. No.
I was going to say, this must be a pretty bad day for him. You're in his flat.
Yeah, that's
That's right. Today's
the
worst. The guillotine was pretty bad. That would be up there. Oh, yeah. No, So when we did the darkroom seances, they're very difficult to do because the stooge has to come out into a pitch black room and move objects on. They've got luminous tabs on them. On the table.
I've seen you write about this in your deception and self-deception book.
That's right. They're tricky performances because you're working in pitch darkness and you've got these objects with luminous dots on. And we have a code so that if the stooge sees something like a crack in the curtains or something and thinks this isn't going to work, they come round and they tap me in a particular place in the back and they go back to the hiding place. So once we did it in East London and there were many magician friends around that table, and we're starting the seance. I'm playing the role of the medium. We start, and I feel the tap on my back, which means that there is nothing that's going to happen for the next 25 minutes. And around the table are a lot of my mates. And so I just talk for 25 minutes, concentrating on the ball. Imagine that levitating. It goes nowhere. Right, let's now concentrate on the tambourine. It goes nowhere. All I'm hearing is a couple of them just sighing, thinking, what is this about? I get to the end of it, light the candle and say, sometimes the spirits don't join us. And that was appalling.
That's the same as most seances that are out there, isn't it?
Yeah. So I remember feeling that tap and thinking, this is going to be a long 25 minutes.
I think you're going to have an amazing answer to this question. I ask this every week. It's the final question, and that is, what do you think is the biggest problem with magic today? And do you have a solution of a way it could be fixed?
Well, one of the biggest problems is actually, in a sense, television or YouTube magic, where people are performing stuff that doesn't work live. It only works for the camera. And it's getting very short attention spanny, where it's just like one piece of eye candy and there's no narrative, there's no nothing. I think I would say, I don't know what the solution to any of this is. I would say that we should all realise that magic is bigger than any of us. It's been around for a long time. We are just the custodians of it for our generation, and it's our job to make it as good and as wonderful as we can and pass it on to the next generation. We're just holding on to it for that little bit of time. We don't own it. We're just trying to shape this thing that we all love and pass it on. And I think that's the best mindset to have, because then what you do becomes quite meaningful. Because in the past, that's what all the old guys did. They worked hard to pass it on to us, and we're going to pass it on to the next folks. And we want them to look back and go, the generation before me was responsible and created amazing stuff. So we are custodians.
This has been brilliant. You've got a great sense of humour, Richard, by the way. This has been the most fun I've had on this podcast for a long time. I just want to say that had nothing to do with you being here.
That's right.
Nothing whatsoever. Thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for making it such a pleasure.
I had so much fun on this week's episode. Thank you very much, Professor Richard Wiseman. If you'd like to follow his work, then you should follow him on Twitter. He is at Richard Wiseman. His website address is richardwiseman.wordpress.com, or of course you can take a look at his YouTube channel, which is Quirkology. Thanks also to Strange for his contributions to this week's episode. Okay folks, it is time for me to wrap this podcast up and ride off into the sunset. But before I do, as mentioned on the podcast, this weekend is the first weekend of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I would like to wish everybody going up to the Fringe with a magic show the very best of luck. I understand there are over 70 magic shows at the Fringe this year. I sincerely hope you all have the best time of your lives. That's it for the Magicians podcast this week, but don't panic, we will be back again next Friday with another brand new episode. I will see you then. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.
I was hot.